What is good, streaming people? Welcome to another edition of CBS Sports HQ. I'm Tommy Tran. This is the high school football show where we take a look at the big games of the weekend and the top players across the country. Before I interview and bring in our guys right now that are flanking me in terms of our experts, we got to start with our top 10 list right now, the excellent 25 here in terms of the MaxPreps rundown. And as you take a look, St. John Bosco still at number 1. Allen, Texas, we will be talking about the Eagles. They're perfect so far this season. And then going on the way down to the list, we know IMG Academy. They are at 7-1, finished for now. And then over in Hawaii, aloha to those be watching right now, all the way in the Pacific as St. Louis at number 10 on that list. All right, so I mentioned bringing in our guy, Zack Poff, Mr. Everything, the football editor, joining us from Northern California over at MaxPreps, then Barton Simmons, 24/7 Sports in the Nashville, Tennessee area. Good to have you guys here. And, boy, let's break down the top game. Of course, Oaks Christian and J. Sarah Catholic. Now, I do want to say right now that, of course, with the wildfires going on in Southern California, postponing the game tonight, so it looks like they're going to try to play that game tomorrow. But, Zack, tell us a little bit more about this game.
Yeah, man, obviously, like you said, Tommy, first and foremost, worried about the fires, hope all the families and everyone's safe down there first. But it looks like this game will go down tomorrow night on Saturday. This is going to be a big-time game. For MaxPreps, we have this as our game of the week. Oaks Christian comes in 11-0 in the top 25 at number 19. They're loaded with talent led by Kayvon Thibodeau, the number 1 player on 24/7 Sports composite rankings. But they face their biggest test of the year against J. Sarah Catholic, a team that's very underrated. Their only 2 losses this year came against Mater Dei and St. John Bosco. And just to show you how good they are real quick, they played Bosco tougher than Mater Dei did.
That is quite the statement right there. And Zack laying down, of course, the game as California and the CIF state playoffs get underway. Barton, he brought up Kayvon Thibodeau. Can you give us an update on the highly touted recruit?
I can. Kayvon Thibodeau right now, still waiting on his announcement, which is going to come in mid-December. But as we follow this recruitment and sort of track the way the tea leaves are shifting in this one, a guy that had been sort of pointed towards Florida State there for a while is suddenly getting a lot of buzz about Oregon. Took a visit just a few weeks ago to Oregon, a program that was probably running maybe 4th in the race for his commitment at that point, and they just knocked it out of the park. And since then, we've been waiting for the buzz to wear off and the shine of that visit to diminish, and it doesn't seem to have gone anywhere. And all of a sudden now, a lot of our national experts for 24/7 Sports have shifted their crystal ball predictions for Oregon for this one, which would be obviously a huge get for Mario Cristobal. He was supposed to go to Florida for an official visit this weekend. Those wildfires that you referenced, Tommy, have forced that to be postponed and rescheduled. But again, that's not one I think anyone's expecting to come in and be able to steal. I really think this is now Oregon sitting in the driver's seat, and if they land him, man, that's part of what has continued to be a historic class for Mario Cristobal at Oregon this fall.
The recruiting wars, and we'll get to a couple of other recruiting storylines here during the show. But again, we're talking about the number 1 player in 2019. Zack, we were talking about the California playoff picture. That's your game of the week. We also have Mater Dei, which you referenced to, at Mission Viejo, another big game out there in California. Tell us a little bit more.
Yeah, this is a huge game. Mission Viejo comes in with only 1 loss on the field. They had to forfeit a few wins because of an ineligible player. Same thing with Mater Dei. But this is one of the best games. The CAF Southern Section Division I bracket, we just came out with our top 10 toughest brackets. This one checked in at number 2, which is pretty impressive because it only features 16 teams. This is a huge game. Mission Viejo, they lost legendary head coach Johnson, and Chad Johnson's done a phenomenal job taking over the former Bosco offensive coordinator. I think Mater Dei is going to win big, though. I think when you just, line it up talent for talent, you got to go with the Monarchs, and Bryce Young and Brew McCoy have been one of the most dynamic duos in high school football, and I love what Keon Ware-Hudson's doing on the defense for the Monarchs, too.
So that's a look at Mater Dei and Mission Viejo. Let's also take a look at the top 5 scoreboard in terms of the top teams in the country in action. Quickly give us an update on St. John Bosco, Zack. What are we thinking about the Braves right now and how they're doing?
I think they're going to win big tonight against San Clemente, a team that's lost 4 games this year. San Clemente did prove they can hang with some of the best teams in SoCal this year, beating Viejo. But I like St. John Bosco to win big. and it would set up a meeting against the winner of Oaks Christian and J. Sarah Catholic next week in the semifinals.
All right, let's move on to our MaxPreps Excellent list in a different tier. And we're taking a look at schools 11 through 20 and highlighting number 17, Duncanville, 9-0, won big last night. So my question to you, Zach, is why aren't they ranked higher?
You know, it just comes to, you know, the strength of schedule. They haven't been playing the best teams in Texas. That's going to change, though, with the 6A Division I playoffs coming up. We ruled that the #1 toughest playoff bracket to win in high school football, which says a lot because there's a ton of big-time brackets out there. If Duncanville can win that, expect them to see jump all the way into the top 5 potentially by the end of the year. Just to show you how tough that bracket is, they're probably going to open up with DeSoto, and DeSoto's got some of the most talented players in all of Texas. I expect Duncanville to make it all the way to the semifinals, which would potentially set up a matchup against the defending 6A D1 state champs, Allen, the #2 team in the top 25, who also won big last night.
And if they are to do that, what are some of the key Panthers that will be leading the way?
Jaquindon Jackson, man. This kid's an absolute baller at quarterback. And, you know, they got the Beeson cousins, Marquise Beeson, you know, close to being a 5-star, one of the best overall athletes in high school football. And they got a big-time defense, too. But the quarterback's the guy that gets it going, man. He's kind of a Vince Young out there, can beat you with his legs and his arm. Super big kid. Jaquindon Jackson, super saucy quarterback out in Texas.
All right, so we're taking a look at the school profile, also the top recruits in terms of Duncanville. Now let's finish off the last MaxPreps Excellent 25 rankings in 21 through 25. Teams that we've talked about before, DeMatha, Colerain, Folsom, University Lab, all on that list, with also Archbishop Hoban there at number 21. Other notable games to also focus on. We have not talked about De La Salle in a bit. Now, you can always catch them, cbssports.com/De La Salle, live stream what the Spartans are doing. That's not too far from where you're at right now, but give us a look and a preview of this Pittsburgh-De La Salle matchup.
All right, so check this out. Last time De La Salle lost to a Northern California opponent, I was 4. I just turned 31 this past weekend, so it was a long, long time ago. The team that beat De La Salle, though, was the team they're playing tonight, and that's Pittsburgh High School. I don't expect that streak to come to an end, though. I like De La Salle to win this one big. De La Salle's next big game won't come until the CIF Open Division State Championship game. They got to win 2 more games to get there, but I don't think that's going to be a problem for a team that's dominated Northern California football. Henry To'oto'a, watch out for that guy. He's a beast linebacker. All
right, that's a breakdown in terms of the high school games. Do not go anywhere. When we come back, Zach will have the regional breakdowns. Barton will have the recruiting storylines. All that and more next. You are streaming CBS Sports HQ. Time to talk about the West Coast region in high school football. It is stacked, of course, as you might expect. #1, St. John Bosco. #2, Mater Dei. #3, Corona Centennial. #4, St. Louis. By the way, the Crusaders on a bye week before the Hawaii D1 Open Division playoffs begin. And then we talked about De La Salle in our earlier segment. Moving on to the Southwest. Talking about a top 5 team. #2 on the excellent 25 rank, and that is #1 in the region, Allen, Texas. So they also had themselves a performance on Thursday night. So again, Zack Poff, Mr. Everything, the football editor over at MaxPreps. How good is this Eagles team?
They're real good, man. There's a reason why I have them as the #2 team. You know, they haven't lost a game since 2016. They've won 27 consecutive games. And they're going to be the favorites going into the toughest playoff bracket, the 6A D1 bracket out in Texas. And last night they ended their regular season a perfect 10-0 with a 63-7 win over Plano West. And, you know, they might have the best duo in high school football with Grant Tisdale, a 2019 Ole Miss commit at quarterback, along with Theo Weiss, a 2019 Oklahoma commit at wide receiver. He very well could be the best wide receiver in high school football. EJ and Doma Ogar on the offensive line. Big-time offensive lineman. Defense has been nasty this year with Jaden Jernigan. They're going to be the favorites to win it, but 6A D1's tough, man. You got to earn it out there in Texas. It's like March Madness. You got to win 6 games in 6 weeks if you want to win it all. Obviously, March Madness doesn't take 6 weeks, but you get what I'm saying.
No doubt. Always love the analogies. Sometimes it's video games, other times it's the NFL. But here we're breaking down the Eagles, which are flying high right now. Moving on to the Southeast region. Colquitt County, where are they on this list? Number 3 in the region, number 9 nationally. And we joke a little bit about two-a-days with Hoover out of Alabama, but Rush Probst is the Mr. Two-a-day, leads Colquitt County. Zach, what are the chances that they get that 3rd title since 2008?
I'm going to say the chances are pretty good. They're probably the favorite to win it all. They're the top-ranked team in Georgia, but you know, in that top 10 playoff bracket we came out with, we had Georgia 7A as the 3rd toughest. So obviously there's a lot of other big-time Georgia teams in there. Probably the toughest competition for Colquitt County would potentially be a matchup against Grayson, who's loaded with talent. They got over 20 D1 stars, guys that are going to be playing in Power 5 conferences. They're loaded, led by Owen Papo. But I think Colquitt County, when it comes to well-balanced and, you know, just having a great coach, I don't know if anyone's as good as Colquitt County. They're good on offense. They're great on defense. Jay Ward, a guy that Barton's going to be hitting on later, he's one of the best corners in all of Georgia. So I'm leaning towards Colquitt County to hold up the 7A trophy this year and get Coach Pops his 3rd since taking over in 2008.
Real quick follow-up. You sort of, I know you want to kind of get there and fully back Colquitt County. Where do you see the biggest road bump or obstacle ahead?
You know, there's a couple of tough teams I have circled that I could see maybe being a roadblock for Colquitt County. I would say Grayson obviously would be one of them. And Archer's a team I like a lot in this Georgia bracket also, too. They got a big-time defense led by a strong secondary. Andrew Booth's one of the best overall players. I think Archer's a team that could potentially get hot. But you never know, man. Georgia's like Texas, California, and Florida. You know, they got a bunch of dogs out there, and we're going to see who's hungriest at the end.
All right, good stuff, Zach. Now moving on to a different region, and we'll tackle the Midwest region, show you the 5 there. Still led by Warren Central out of Indiana, then Archbishop Homan, Colerain, Washington, and Mentor. 4 of those schools out of the state of Ohio. Moving on to the Northeast as we take a look. St. John's, D.C., St. Francis Academy, St. Joseph's Prep, DeMatha, and Bergen Catholic. Having some playoffs begin in those regions with some of those schools. So those are just some of the look at the top teams in that region. And as we take a look at some of the other things coming up, we're going to take a quick break. The recruiting storylines. Barton Simmons is going to be joining me next. Welcome back to CBS Sports HQ, the high school football show. Time for the recruiting storylines. And we've got 2 topics. Kentucky loses commit after LSU offer, and TCU picks up big-time sleeper. With more, Barton Simmons, Director of Scouting, 24/7 Sports. And Jay Ward decommits from Kentucky, so he's got an offer from LSU. What's the latest on the 3-star corner and sort of the crystal ball projection here, Barton?
Well, we're at the point in the season, Tommy, where senior tape's starting to come out, and colleges are starting to go down their board a little bit. Maybe they missed the first couple, and now they're scouring the country. And you see a guy like Jay Ward, who's at Colquitt County, who you guys talked about just a little bit ago. He's 6'1" plus, super long, was committed to Kentucky and was going to fit in really nicely with what they've built in the defensive backfield in terms of these 6'2", 6'3" corners and defensive backs. Well, he's kind of played too well this fall. I mean, you turn on the film and it's awesome. And LSU what caught their attention. They circled back, extended an offer there in late October, and here recently he is decommitted from Kentucky and opened things back up. And you got to think LSU is now the lead. The crystal ball is trending in that direction, but I wouldn't be surprised if a few other schools come in and muddy the waters even further. He's pretty good, and at 6'2", to be able to do the things he does with the ball skills he has and to change the directions he shows, he's got a chance to be pretty special and potentially add to what's been obviously an unbelievable defensive back tradition at LSU.
Man, you know, I saw that high school photo of him. Looks a little skinny, but boy, once he hits that program, Barton, you mentioned the 6'1", 6'2" aspect of it. Very impressive, good get for what we think will be the Tigers there. Another one is Blair Conrad, Lubbock, Texas guy, Coronado High School. What do we know more about him and his situation?
Yeah, this is my guy here. This is a guy who, and look, TCU does this better than anybody. Devontae Turpin is sort of one of the better examples here of late. A kid out of Louisiana who just had Louisiana Tech type of offers. TCU goes down there and gets him, and he turned into a a dynamic playmaker for that program. Blair Conright could be the next guy in that line. TCU just picked up a commitment from him. The only other offers he had were schools like Texas State, and he did have a Kansas offer, but SMU types were who offered him. And I've seen this kid in person, and he is an outstanding route runner, great competitor, outstanding ball skills. He's been incredibly productive on the high school level, albeit West Texas is not as good of a talent and competition level as we talk about generally on this show in the East Texas schools. But the kid does it on the basketball court. He's a 22-foot long jumper. So I think TCU has found themselves another sleeper, another steal. He's a little bit undersized, but that offense knows how to utilize those space athletes, and I think he's the next in line there in Fort Worth.
Good stuff as always in terms of the recruiting storylines. Bringing back in Zack Poff here. Let's take a look at the top 5 scoreboard, and before we let everybody go, Zack, which one is the highest on the sauce meter here?
I'm going Viejo Mater Dei, man. Mater Dei potentially could have Bosco in a couple weeks. They got a ball out this week and then maybe next week against Nubre Corona Centennial. So I got the Monarchs circled. Also out in D.C., Gonzaga, St. John's. That's going to be a fun one, man. Second straight week these two teams are playing, this time in the playoffs. So it's going to be fun, baby. All
right, another week of high school football. Nobody does it better than the guys flanking me here on the screen, Zack Poff and Barton Simmons. Guys, thank you so much, and thanks for joining us here on CBS Sports HQ. Don't forget about the 24/7 college football pod, Week 11 locks with Barton. Our guy Chip Patterson, Tom Fornelli, all making them picks. What about Alabama and Mississippi State? Q's in Louisville, that and more. Have a good weekend, everybody. We'll see you.